Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi, if you guys are new here, my name is Brittany. Thank you everyone for clicking on today's video. Before I get started, I do want to do a little disclaimer or trigger warning. Some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this video might be triggering to some of you or hard to hear for some of you. I am going to be speaking about mental illness and suicidal thoughts and attempts. So I just wanted to throw this out there just kind of as a warning. I'm pretty nervous making this video and it's kind of hard for me to make. Now, I don't have a script or anything, so I'm just going to share my story and my experience living my life with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder. So with that being said, this video might be all over the place. It might be long, it might be short, I don't know. I am just sitting here telling my story. It has been weighing on my heart for a while now to share my story and bring awareness to BPD and depression and anxiety and just mental health as a whole. And I thought, since May is the month of mental health awareness, I thought that it would be the perfect time to share this. So that is the purpose for me making this video today and sharing it with all of you. I wanted to share my story and I wanted to bring awareness about BPD. Not everyone knows about it. Or even really knows that I have it. And so I thought I would share, and that is the reason for this video. I am not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for pity. Nothing like that at all. So please don't take this video that way. I want to help others out there who do have BPD, or maybe a loved one of yours has BPD and you don't know exactly what they're going through or how to help them, and they won't or can't express that to you. If you guys don't know what borderline personality disorder is, it is a mental illness, and it has like 9 classic traits that people with borderline personality disorder have. The first one is unclear or shifting self-image, so not really knowing who you are or accepting who you are a lot of the time. Unstable relationships. It's hard to maintain relationships. Frequent mood swings. Impulsive and self-destructive behavior. So lots of self-harm, drug use, and alcohol use. Fear of rejection or abandonment. Self-harm and suicidal tendencies, explosive anger, feeling of emptiness, and loss of touch with reality. Those are the 9 classic symptoms of people who have BPD. BPD does impact everyday life. It impacts how you feel about yourself and how you feel about others, and sometimes it can distort reality. So I am now going to share my story of when I was diagnosed, before I was diagnosed, and how I am doing now. Growing up, I had a loving mother and a loving father and a sister and a brother and a great household and a great family. And I didn't come from a broken home. I didn't come from an abusive home. I was never abused as a child, and everything was good. My family was good, my life was good. However, I struggled a lot as a child. I was always different. I wasn't like my friends. I wasn't like my sister. I wasn't like my brother. I was very, very emotional from a very young age. And this is kind of hard to admit, but when I was about 5 or 6, I ran away in the middle of the night. I ran away with a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine, and we both ran away around like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We just packed a bunch of food in a bag and left. And we walked 2 or 3 blocks until a neighbor found us. A neighbor was pulling into the driveway. He had just gotten off of work, and he made us show him where we lived, and I got in huge trouble. I got grounded. The reason why I ran away was because I didn't feel like I was loved. Like I said, I had great parents, and I'm not dragging anybody with this video at all, because I know some of my family watched this video. That's not what this is about. This is about my life experience and how I saw life. So at 6 years old, I didn't feel loved, and I knew I was different. And so I thought leaving would just be better for everyone else. Now, if you have mental illness, you can probably relate to that statement. That if you aren't here, it's better for everybody else. And that's how I felt at 6 years old. So ever since then, I had struggled. I struggled with fitting in. I struggled with my self-esteem and being in my own body. And continued to struggle emotionally and not be able to regulate pretty much any emotion. I didn't have very many friends in school. I was never the popular girl, and I was very shy, and I didn't like to put myself out there. So jumping from all of elementary school up until 7th grade, 7th grade was when I really started to be promiscuous and started making bad choices. And I was in 7th or 8th grade when I started cutting. I didn't cut extremely with a knife or anything. Usually like a razor blade or a razor. Nothing too deep, nothing too extreme, but you could definitely see the cuts. And I used cutting as a form of a coping mechanism, which, looking back, is not okay. But when you're struggling, that's how you release some of your anxiety and some of your emotions. And I was also trying to cry out for help without asking for help. I didn't want to ask for help because I was scared and I was ashamed and I didn't feel like I was going to be listened to. So I began cutting and I began drinking. I was very young, making these insane choices. And now that I have kids myself, and that my oldest is 13, I can never imagine her doing the things that I did. And I know kids are going to be kids, but I was definitely doing it because of BPD. But I didn't know that at the time. I knew, like I said, that I was different, but I didn't know the severity of it. And mental illness runs in my family. And so looking back, all of the signs were there. So now I'm going to jump into high school. And I was still being very promiscuous, and I was still drinking alcohol, and I got pregnant at the age of 16. I was a sophomore in high school and getting really good grades and just trying to get out of high school. I did not like high school that much. I didn't like the mean girls. I didn't like, just high school was just not that great. And then I became the pregnant girl in high school, and that made it extremely hard as well. But I will say that Emma helped save me. I stopped drinking. I knew I wanted to be a good mom because at the time, everyone said I had ruined my life, and that being a teen mom, I wouldn't amount to anything in my life, because the stigma is once you're a teen mom, you don't graduate high school, you don't go to college, things like that. So hearing those words definitely motivated me to make sure I was a good mom, made sure I graduated high school, which I did. I graduated my junior year. I did summer school between sophomore year and junior year, and I took my junior year classes during summer school. And then my junior year, I took all of my senior classes. So I graduated with the high school diploma, and I walked with the senior class, and I was the only junior. So I'm proud of that accomplishment. And I worked very hard, and I continue to work very hard for my kids. I did get married to Emma's dad at the age of 17. I was almost 18, and we got married, and we decided to have more kids. And I ended up pregnant with twins. So I was 19 years old with a toddler and pregnant with twins, and it was not easy. I was a stay-at-home mom at that point, and only my ex was working at that time. I got really sick during my pregnancy with the twins. I ended up having gallstones, and if any of you ever have had gallstones or gallbladder attacks, I'm sure you guys can relate to how painful that is, because it is one of the worst pains ever. But they couldn't do anything about it because I was a high-risk pregnancy with twins. So I had to go through my entire pregnancy with gallstones and gallbladder attacks, and it was stressful. The twins were born at 36 weeks and 3 days, and they were full term for twins, and they were healthy as could be. No NICU time was needed. And so we went home after, I think, 2 days. We would have went home the next day, but Liam failed the car seat test with oxygen, but that's a whole different story. We got home, and I fell into postpartum depression. I was never diagnosed with it, but looking back, I can definitely see that I was extremely depressed, and I was still extremely sick. And I was a very young mom of 3 kids, and it was extremely difficult, and I had no support from the kids' dad. A month after the twins were born, I had the worst gallbladder attack, and I was admitted into the hospital for emergency surgery. And gallbladder surgery typically is an outpatient surgery, but mine turned into an emergency. I had 3 stones that were lodged, and had I not gone in, it could have been very bad. So I was actually in the hospital for 5 days. So I have a 2-year-old, 1-month-old twins, and I'm stuck in the hospital for 5 days. That was like the tipping point of my postpartum depression. And the next year after that is quite a blur. Probably like a year and a half after that is quite a blur. I was in so much pain emotionally, and I blocked a lot of stuff out. And then shortly after the twins turned 1, I got a phone call, and that phone call changed my life. A family member had called me to share the news that my husband at the time was cheating on me and was having a 7-month-long affair. And I about lost it. I was at his parents' house at the time with the kids, and I had left the kids there and rushed over to my dad's, and just completely was a wreck. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I was unhappy in that marriage, but I was a 20-year-old mom of 3 kids with no job and no college education. So leaving had crossed my mind, but I didn't have my ducks in a row to leave. But once I got that phone call and that proof, I knew it was time to leave. And that's what I did. I kicked him out that night. I filed for a divorce, and my grandparents helped me obtain a lawyer to just make sure I was protected and my kids were protected. And I got a job, and I was doing it all on my own. I was a single mom of 3 kids, very young, 20 years old, and I had to put the kids in daycare, which was such a scary thought because I never thought I would had to have done that. And I worked at a call center because, again, I didn't have a college degree. I did have a high school diploma, and I had pretty much no job experience. I had only worked at a paintball shop and seasonal catering, and that was it. But I worked at a medical call center and did what I had to do to make sure my kids were taken care of. From the point of having Emma all the way to the point of getting divorced, I was doing okay mentally, besides depression. Okay, so what I mean by that is I didn't experience suicidal thoughts at all during that time. From the point of having Emma to the point of being really sick throughout my pregnancy with the twins, my mental health was probably the best it had ever been because I was so happy being a mom. Then I did get postpartum depression with the twins, but still I had not felt suicidal at all. I just didn't have any of those feelings. The year 2011, between the time I was divorced and the time I met Josh, I just became a party girl. You know, I had Emma so young, and I didn't really experience, you know, all the parties at high school, all that kind of stuff, because my main focus was being a mom. So then after my divorce, I had to share custody of my kids with their dad. So on the times that I didn't have my kids, I began to drink a lot and make bad choices all over again and be very promiscuous. And I just really wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all. I was happy to be free from a marriage that I didn't want to be in. But I wasn't happy that I had to share my kids. I wasn't happy with my kids now having 2 separate homes. I wasn't happy with the drama of having a baby dad and that whole situation. Like, I just wasn't happy. So when I didn't have my kids, I drank to distract myself and went to parties and all that kind of stuff to distract myself. I joined a dating app called Plenty of Fish, and that is where I met Josh. We started talking, I believe it was in October, and we didn't officially meet until the end of November. It was the day after Thanksgiving in 2011. And, but just talking to him, I just felt like I knew him and felt like he was just like the sweetest, nicest person. And totally different from everyone on the app, because if you guys been on dating apps, you probably know what I mean by that. There's a lot of crazies out there that you have to weed through. So meeting Josh from the first time, it was like an instant connection, and we've been together ever since. So we have been together since November of 2011. And he is my best friend. And he helped save me. Our relationship at the beginning was very hard because of my own doing. I didn't ever feel worthy of his love and acceptance because I thought I had too much baggage in my life so that no one would ever want me. I said I was never going to get remarried. I was never going to have more kids. And I was just going to be alone for the rest of my life because I thought I had too much baggage and too much drama with the baby dad and my emotions and the way I look. He tells me I'm pretty all the time, and even after so long, it's still hard for me to believe it. So December of 2011, he took me to Disneyland and he proposed to me. And of course, I said yes. And then fast forward to April 2012, we got married. So we were only dating for about 5 months and we got married and we went to Vegas and we had an actual wedding, an actual ceremony. And some of my family was there and it was just amazing. It was incredible. And yes, I was happy. Of course I was happy, but I was still struggling. So now I'm going to fast forward a couple months after we got married. I don't know what had happened. I don't remember what triggered me this day. And I do want to say, up until this point, I had never been officially diagnosed with any mental illness. So fast forwarding a couple months after we got married, there was a really bad night. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember what triggered me. I don't remember what caused me to do this. But I had a suicide attempt. Just Josh and I were at the house. The kids were with their dad. And I was really upset about something. Like I said, I don't remember what. But I grabbed a very big kitchen knife from the kitchen. And I ran to my bedroom with it. And Josh chased after me. I was trying to escape and lock the door so that I could just, I don't know, I guess stab myself until I bled to death. I mean, I don't know what was running through my mind at that moment, but obviously I was hurting. Just don't remember from what. And, you know, Josh caught up to me before I could shut and lock the door. I had the knife behind my back, in my hands, and he pulled one of my arms out, like I was holding them behind, but I had this hand wrapped around the blade and this hand just on the handle, and he grabbed my hand out and I sliced open my fingers. Like, I still have all the scars. And I still remember the look on Josh's face. And I feel terrible. I feel terrible that I did that, and it sucks. So I obviously had to go get stitches. I had to go to the hospital and get stitches in my hand. And at that point, he said, we need to get you help. And, you know, he had been the only one in my life to recognize that I needed help and took the time to get me help. So I, over the summer of 2012, went to a clinic, and that's when I got diagnosed with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and depression and anxiety. And I was pissed at Josh because the psychiatrist read from a book, and like that's how they do like their tallies and their check marks to kind of like grade you on a scale. And I was so pissed. I was like, why did you make me go through that? I don't believe them. She read from a book. That's not true. After being diagnosed, they put me on medications, and I would take them here or there. I didn't really trust that they were going to help. I didn't get any therapy. I didn't think that that was going to help. I was sort of in denial about the whole situation. And so I just continued with my life and was still working. And Josh and I were trying to have a baby. I had been on the depot shot, and the depot shot made me gain a bunch of weight, which made me super insecure. And then it caused me to not have a cycle for about 15 months. And then I finally got pregnant with Ronan 17 months after. So not being able to get pregnant for that long really took a toll on my mental health. It made me very sad and just not good. Once I finally got pregnant with Ronan, I stopped my medications. I know that some medications are deemed to be okay during pregnancy, but I had waited so long to get pregnant with Ronan that I didn't want to take any risks. So I stopped taking my medicine, which was a really, it was really hard for me at that point because at that point I was dependent on them. So I started therapy. So in 2013, I was currently pregnant with Ronan, not taking any medications. I was still working, and I started DBT therapy, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is one of the best therapies for anyone who struggles with borderline personality disorder. It's proven to work. So up until I had Ronan, I completed the entire course of DBT therapy. I was going twice a week at night after work. And then once a week on Saturday mornings, I would go for an individual therapy. I can't remember if it was once a week or once every other week. I can't remember for sure. But that therapy was amazing. And it did wonders, and it really, really helped me get through my pregnancy with no medication and all of the support, and I was just ready to be a good mom. Ronan was born April 2012, and I was on maternity leave, and then I started getting really, really depressed. I didn't want to go back to work. We were renting a house at the time. So me going back to work meant that we could buy a house sooner so we could save up our money. But I just couldn't handle the thought of leaving Ronan at daycare and going back to work when he was just a baby. So I ended up quitting my job, and I became a stay-at-home mom of all 4 kids. And the BPD just crept right back in. I thought since I did the DBT therapy and since I wasn't on medications for so long, I thought I was strong enough to just be okay. And I was wrong. So that summer went by, and I ended up going back to work. I went back to my same job. They still had an opening, so I went back. I went to a psychiatrist and I got on medication. And I didn't want to do therapy at the time because I was raising 4 kids, I was working full time, and I only had enough time just to go to the psychiatrist to get my medication refills. Taking psychiatric medications is very trial and error. There are a lot of them that work, and there are a lot of them that don't work. And I wasn't brave enough to speak up to my psychiatrist and explain or say that I'm not taking this medication, give me another one. So I was just thrown all these medications. So I can't remember all of the medications that I was on, but I remember being on Geodon, which is a mood stabilizer for people with bipolar or BPD or schizophrenia. And that medication really messed my body up, and it might work for some of you out there. I'm not saying don't ever try it, but for me it did not work. It caused me to have more anxiety, and it caused me to have restless legs, and it caused me to rock back and forth. I could not control it. I would rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was trying to work at a job. I was trying to be a mom. I was trying to be a wife. And I was literally hanging on by a thread. And I would tell my doctor how I would feel all the time, and he would just say, okay, well, let's up it. Let's try this. Let's try that. So then he put me on Valium for anxiety. And I just remember being high all the time. I remember going to work, and at this point, I had switched jobs. Now I was working at a pediatrician's office, and that job just set me over the edge. It was such a bad working environment. It was horrible. But I continued to push myself to work because I wanted to buy a house, and I wanted my kids to have everything they need, maybe even want. So I just continued. So I was working about 50 hours a week, taking kids to daycare first before work, working all day, picking up the kids after work, getting fast food several times a week because I just didn't have any time to cook or any energy to cook. Gained even more weight from after the depot shot, gained even more weight from being on psychiatric medications and not eating good at all. And I feel so bad. I missed out a lot on Ronan's life. From when he was just a little baby, and all of the opportunities of snuggles and kisses and playtimes that I missed. I missed it from going to work. I missed it from being on all these medications. I missed it from being so anxious. I could never live in the moment. And I missed it all. I had had enough. And I told Josh. So this was, I can't remember when, like early 2016 maybe. Maybe even 17, I don't remember. I don't remember what year it was. But I told Josh that if I didn't get the right help that I needed, I would not be alive to see the next year. And that the suicidal thoughts were louder than ever. And that I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live this life that I was living. I couldn't be drugged up all the time. I couldn't be a zombie all the time. I couldn't be rocking back and forth all the time. I couldn't do it. And I felt like I was just bringing him down and not being a good mom. And I thought, if I just wasn't there, their lives would be better. So at that point, I quit my job and I started intensive outpatient therapy. Before I get into that part, I do want to say that I quit my meds cold turkey because I did call my psychiatrist and they said that if I didn't get admitted into the psychiatric ward, that there was nothing else that they could do for me. And since Josh was my rock and was there by my side through everything, I didn't feel comfortable going to the psychiatric ward. And I also didn't want to lose custody of my kids or have CPS involved or have my ex-husband trying to take my kids from me because I had a mental illness. And so I refused to go. And I stopped my medications completely. And I felt very sick after stopping them. But the rocking stopped and the 24/7 anxiety stopped and the restless legs stopped. Then I was still struggling a lot emotionally, regulating my emotions and just being present was still a struggle for me. So at that point, I quit my job and I started intensive outpatient therapy. I couldn't do the in-treatment therapy, which it's not in a psych ward, it's at a therapy center, which you do all day, but you can leave at night to go spend with your family. But I couldn't do that option because I still had kids and I still had to be a mom and I still had to take them to school. So 3 times a week at night, I would go to the therapy center in a group setting and do intensive outpatient therapy. And then I was also doing 1 time a week individual therapy sessions. So I did that until I completed the intensive outpatient therapy portion. After completing the intensive outpatient program, I joined a CBT therapy program, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I met some incredible people in these groups, and my therapists were just amazing, and I really enjoyed going to therapy. I really enjoyed being in a group. I was so against it, even when I started DBT, but group therapy really does help. It opens up your eyes to know that you're not alone. While I was doing therapy, I started seeing a psychiatrist, a different one from the one before, and we worked together to find medication that worked for me. So at the time, I was on Wellbutrin and gabapentin. So the Wellbutrin I was taking for my depression and my emotions, and then gabapentin I was taking for anxiety. It is not a narcotic, and it is usually used for like nerve pain, but it is like a miracle anxiety medication. It doesn't cause all of the other side effects like narcotics do, and I was still able to function and be a good mom and be in the present while taking medications to help my mental health. I was still struggling trying to process all of the trauma that I had experienced, and so then I ended up doing a different therapy, which this one was probably the hardest one I had to do, therapy, called EMDR. It is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. And it's where you sit pretty close to your therapist and they like do these hands, like they do these movements on your hands, and you have your eyes closed, and it's a whole process. If you guys have never tried it and have a lot of trauma to reprocess, I highly recommend that therapy, because that is the last therapy that I actually did. Doing that therapy was difficult, and I remember experiencing a lot of hard days after the therapy because you kind of relive it all. And but it helps your mind process the things that you've been through, the difficult things that you've been through, and kind of helps you move forward. I'll never forget the things that I've been through, but I'm also not letting it hold me down anymore. And I'm thankful for that therapy, and I am thankful that I had the opportunity and a really great therapist and was able to do that. So after that therapy, I felt good enough to not need it anymore. I think I learned enough coping skills and mechanisms to be okay. And I definitely wasn't having many outbursts or flare-ups, and not as many bad days. And I was still on medication, and I continued medication all the way up until October of 2019, because I got my tubes tied. And then I also had to get a root canal, and I was on pain meds for a good 2 weeks straight between getting my tubes tied and the root canal. Maybe it was even like 3 weeks. But I wasn't taking my psych meds while taking pain meds. They're not supposed to be combined, at least not the ones that I was on. And not taking the Wellbutrin, I felt less anxious. So I made the decision to not go back on my psych meds after not being on them for so long. I kind of already weaned myself off of them. So I made the decision not to go back on them. And now here it is, May of 2021, and I haven't been on my medications, and overall I'm doing pretty good. I'd be lying if I would say I didn't have bad days, because I still do. I still struggle, and especially last year with the pandemic and how pretty much everybody's lives were turned upside down. It was difficult at first, but life has been pretty good. I still struggle, and I still have my bad days, which is normal. I have all the tools I need, but when I'm in the middle of depression, or I'm in the middle of anxiety, or just having a terrible day, I throw those tools right out the window, and I don't use them like I should. So that is definitely something that I need to work on for myself and my family. But that is my story with having BPD and when I was diagnosed, and now I'm living with it, and I am going to live with it for the rest of my life. It's not something that can just be cured. It can definitely be treated with therapy and with medications, and I will seek both of those options in the future should I need it. I don't need it currently. I don't think that I do, but I am very aware now of my feelings, and I am very aware of mental illness and how real it is. If any of you watching struggle with mental illness yourself, please know that there is help out there. I know how hard it can be to reach out for help, but it's very brave. And if you have a good support team, you can overcome anything, any mental illness. And suicide is not the answer. And I can say that in my right mind right now, but I know what it feels like when you're in the thick of it and you feel like your only option is suicide. I know what that feels like. But there is help out there, and there are people who care. And so if you are experiencing that at all, I'll leave the suicide hotline number down in the description box. And just reach out for help, because it really is not the answer. I lost a good friend of mine to suicide, and I miss her every single day, and I wish she was here. And so if you are struggling, please get help. Before I end this video, I did want to share some books that are very helpful to you if you have BPD, or even if you have a loved one that has BPD. I really, really recommend these books. This is the first one. It's called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, and it says Understanding the Borderline Personality Disorder. This book is really great because if you have BPD, you push people away. And like I kind of said before, how I pushed Josh away and I didn't feel worthy of his love, or you're afraid of abandonment. This book really helps. It helps just kind of put that into perspective. And Josh actually bought all 3 of these books to help him help me. And I can't, I'm super grateful that he took the time to learn about BPD and learn how to help me, especially when I was refusing to help myself. So he actually bought all these books. So that is the first one. Here's the second one. And it is called Loving Someone with Borderline Personality Disorder. So if you have a loved one that has BPD, this book is really good. So it can just help you help them. And then here's another one. And this one is a really good one. It's called Stop Walking on Eggshells. Taking your life back when someone you care about has personality disorder. So again, this is for any of you who have a loved one that has BPD. This is a good one too. And this right here is my binder that I've had since 2013. This is full of my therapy and my homework from doing DBT therapy. And I was looking through it a little bit before I started this video. But these are the diaries I used to have to do every day. And then I would have to share them in therapy. Here's the module that we had to do. So it was this whole thing. We had to answer all these questions and do all this homework, and it's kind of fun to look back on, and just it's nice to see how far that I've came, because some days when I'm struggling, I feel back in that moment to where I haven't grown at all, I haven't improved at all, and it just brings me to a dark place. But reading these diaries and how far I've come is like a real eye-opener, and I've worked so hard, Hasn't been easy, but I have definitely worked really hard, and I'm proud of myself to be in a better mindset to where I don't need to rely on medications at this time, and I don't need therapy at this time, and that I can do this on my own. It might not be that way forever, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay acknowledging that this might not be forever. Like, mental illness can peak at any time, and things happen in our lives, and I know myself, and I know that when or if I ever need to reach out for help again, then I will. All right, you guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I know this was a long one, so if you guys are still here at the end of this video, thank you guys so much for listening to my story. And just a reminder to be kind to one another. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.